Hello, my name is Yoshina Nakazawa, and I'll be showing you a small program that I wrote, a simple library management system. The main focus of this presentation will be on functions, the parts of the program that do most of the actual work, such as adding, searching, displaying, and deleting books. Functions are very important because they help keep our code more organized, reusable, and easier to maintain. As a result, even for a program such as this, it makes everything a lot cleaner. First, let's look at the book structure. Here, each book stores three pieces of information: an ID, string title, and string author. Using a structure keeps all the data for one book together, making it a lot easier to manage rather than having to create three separate arrays for title, authors, and IDs. Our library is an array that is basically a collection of these book structures, each index holding one book with a fixed size of 20 that will be mentioned in the main function at the bottom of the code. Most of our functions, except the main function, take parameters. Parameters let us pass information into functions by reference or by value so that the function can work with different pieces of data, making it more flexible and reusable. Values passed by reference will be updated in the main function, while values passed by value will simply be copied. Even though my code doesn't use function prototypes because all my functions are defined above the main function, they are very helpful if you want to call a code function before its definition. They basically let the compiler know, hey, this function exists, it's here, so that the main function can work properly. Now let's go over the actual functions. The first function is add book. It first checks whether the library array is full or not by comparing the book count with the actual size of the array. If it's full, it goes back to the main function. Otherwise, it asks the user for the title, author, and ID of the book. It stores this information in the next available spot in the library array, then increments the book count that is passed by reference so that the program knows how much of the array is used. Everything happens inside this function, making it so that the main function doesn't need to know the details. That's one of the biggest advantages of using functions. Next is the display library function that loops through the array and prints out all the books currently stored, and including their information. If no books are added yet, it tells the user that the book library is empty and returns back to the main function. This function is useful for quickly checking the library's contents. Because it's in a function, we can easily call it anywhere in the program without having to duplicate the code, making it more reusable and modular. Next, the search book function lets the user type in a title to search for a specific book. First, it checks whether the array is once again empty or not. If it is not, we input in the title. Then, using a loop, it will search through the array, and if it finds the book, it will print out the details. If not, it says the book is not found and returns back to the main function. This shows how loops and conditionals live inside a function, keeping the main function a lot simpler. Finally is the delete book function. It asks the user for an book ID to remove. It searches for that ID, and if it finds it, it shifts all the books after it down one spot to fill in the gap. By doing so, it updates the book count by decrementing it, such that the array doesn't have a gap. If the ID isn't found, it simply tells the user the book isn't found and returns back to the main function. Once again, the main function only just calls the delete function and doesn't actually handle the shifting logic itself. Especially in larger programs, functions like these keeps the code organized and more maintainable, keeping it a lot simpler to look through code. Now let's finally look at the main function. First is the array that was constantly mentioned above, with the fixed size of 20 and the array of book objects called library. Then it shows a menu with the options of adding, searching, displaying, deleting, or exiting the program. The menu is displayed within a while loop, which keeps the program running until the user chooses to exit. The user picks a number and a switch case is used to call for the appropriate function. For example, calling 1, inputting 1 calls the add book function. The calling 2 will call the searchbook function, and so on forth. Using a while loop with a switch case keeps the menu and user interaction separate, which is a good programming practice and makes the program easier to read and maintain. Finally, let's actually go through the program by pressing the Run button. First, I'll be adding in several books, which will be done by inputting the value 1, which will in this case call add book. I'll be inputting Winter Song by S.J. Jones with the random ID of 111. I'll continue adding 2 more books to show the example, once again calling the add book function with the Great Gatsby by F. Scott with an ID of 222. One more book calling the add book function. Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan with an ID of 333. Now that we have added all these books, we will search for a book. In this case, I'll be searching for Winter Song. Oh no, that was wrong. So in this case, I'll be inputting 2, calling the search book function, and I'll be looking for the book Winter Song. And it has found Winter Song by S.J. Jones, and it prints out all the information, including its ID. Next, let's display all the books by inputting 3, which calls the display library function. Now it displays all the books and its details: Winter Song, The Great Gatsby, and Percy Jackson. Finally, to show how to delete a book, I'll be inputting 4, which calls the delete book function. I'll be choosing to delete 111 or Winter Song by S.J. Jones. And now it says book successfully deleted. Of course, we cannot tell at this point in time, since we cannot look at the list, so I will be once again displaying all the books by inputting 3 and calling display library. If we look at the list that is printed now, Winter Song is no longer here, replaced by The Great Gatsby and Percy Jackson, having moved up 1. And now that we have gone through all 4 of these functions outside of the main function, I'll be exiting the program. Exiting, code execution successful. This demonstration shows how functions that handle all the work behind the scenes are very powerful. They make the programs more organized, reusable, and easier to expand. And so in conclusion, functions are very important to programming since they help us organize and reuse code. Parameters allow functions to work with different pieces of data, making code more flexible. And even though I didn't use prototypes in this situation, they're very useful for calling functions before they're defined. While this program is a very small library management system, the same approach works for bigger programs, making it very easy to expand, such as games, apps, and databases. Learning to use functions effectively is a key skill for any programmer, including anyone in computer science 2 or 1. Thank you for watching.